Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Thérèce, to Urbanistica Podcast. Hello and welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here today.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. Yeah, just it's been a long week, so
Yeah.
a little bit tired. So I'm hoping to keep the focus today.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it's a short week this week, so
Yeah.
looking forward to the weekend. Yeah.
Nice. Also, I see a lot of things happening on your side with the taxonomy and all the projects. So
Yeah, there's a lot going on now. In the taxonomy, I mean, it's been brewing for some time, but
Yeah.
it feels like last year it got everyone started talking about
Yeah.
it. That's when everyone sort of found out about it, and this year it's been even more. Yeah. So
Awesome. So let's start. You are our storyteller. How would you like to introduce yourself to our listener?
yeah. So my name is Thérèce Bonnier. And I work as a sustainability consultant in urban planning and design at the AFRY. And I was born and raised in Sweden, in in the suburbs just north of Stockholm, the district called Täby. And now, currently, I'm living in Stockholm together with my boyfriend. But I've also lived in the US and China for some time
Nice.
for studies. My background is in
Yeah.
engineering, for energy and environmental engineering, but I did a master's also in sustainable urban planning and design at
Cool.
the Royal Institute of Technology
Yeah.
in Stockholm.
So did we stay the same program as UPD, right? Is it that one? or
Yes,
no?
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Did you
nice.
study that one
Yeah,
too?
I did that as well.
Hey! I
That's
didn't
amazing.
know.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah, I've also encountered a handful other people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this. It's nice to know that there's
Yes.
peers around in the world.
So it's like the right, how to say, your education fits with what you're working with now, and you're passionate about this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
actually, yeah, that's it was my passion
Yeah.
for sustainability and for specifically for sustainability
Yeah.
also in urban development that made me choose that master's program and made me decide that that's where I want to go and that's
Nice.
what I want to study. And then, of course, that also had me ending up doing this
Yeah.
job. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So as a sustainability consultant, what do you work with?
So I help clients, usually real estate companies or investors, municipalities,
Yeah.
and other public sectors when they're doing an urban development project.
Yeah.
I help them to understand sustainability issues connected to this and to navigate the jungle that sustainability can be, right? And
Yeah.
in urban development, we're talking about wicked problems, and to help them understand what the negative impacts can
Yes.
be and how they can mitigate the negative impacts and then increase the positive impacts, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's like a huge, right? Like, because are you special on one type within sustainability, let's say social aspect, or no, you take it an overall?
Exactly. I take the more overall.
Yeah.
We call it the holistic perspective,
Yes.
or like strategic approach to sustainability. So I'm not an expert like you in any specific area, but more understand a little bit about everything
Yeah.
and try to and help them people to see conflicts and synergies between different sustainability aspects, and then try and help people to understand these as well, and get together
exactly
in these.
Yeah, and I saw you're like very active and within Citylab.
Yes, exactly.
And also like the certification, the education. So first of all, congratulations, like you're getting the certifications.
Yeah,
So
thank
really
you.
good job. And I love to hear more about Citylab and the working methodology.
Yeah, so Citylab is a Swedish developed sustainability certification system for urban development, for maybe those listening who haven't heard the name before. And it also takes in the holistic perspective. And there's actually 2 different certifications. So there's a new one that was it was released, the original version was released several years ago, so I want to say, but it was like in 2017 or something. But there was a new version released now in the spring, an updated version, and that's the congratulations, because I was also among one of the first batch to take that certification. But and that one focuses on the development process and the planning process. And then there's also another certification that is for already built districts. So it's 2 different ones. And the one for built districts is more focused on like quantified target goals. When it comes down to, for example, perceived safety in the district or in the city, or energy efficiency in the buildings, etc. And it's very quantified. And you have to actually go out and measure to receive that certification. Whereas then the one for new development is more focused on the planning process and getting the questions and understanding the different sustainability aspects, and seeing the conflicts and synergies, and handling the conflicts throughout the process. And then what is certified is actually this sustainable urban development program that you make during the development or during the planning.
And let's say, who should get this certification? I mean, like, is it the area, the city, the landowners, when you work on a specific area?
So
if you can guide us through the process and tell us details.
Yes, of course. So for the already built cities, it's usually the municipality, it's a built city, or whoever is responsible for the district. But for new processes, it's actually the sustainable development or sustainable urban development program, the document in itself, that becomes certified. And it's to make sure that you have taken in consideration, that you have actively engaged different stakeholders in the planning process, and taken in consideration multiple different aspects, so you don't forget important aspects. And also, like I said, the focus is on highlighting the conflicts and synergies. So the process is usually in the early planning process of a new urban development. It's basically a backcasting method. And so it's usually you will have an idea on what you want to develop. There will be an idea, at least, of a vision from maybe the landowner, which can be public or private, or from politicians, and you say, so let's say we have the vision that one goal is that it's supposed to be a livable city for everyone. A vision of some sort. And then what you start with is trying to figure out, and according to these different focus areas that have been been sorted out, or how to say, according to Citylab, to be very important. You look into these different focus areas and you look into like, what do we know about these focus areas? And then what's the project organization? What will it look like in the future? What are the stakeholders? So you make a current situation analysis. What do we have? And then what are the gaps? Like, what do we need?
And what are the focus areas like from Citylab that we should look at?
So it can be energy systems and to have local energy production, but also energy efficient production. And the focus is actually then more on smart or climate neutral energy production. So also smart systems for energy. It's about climate adaptation with like flooding risks. It's about biodiversity. It's about circularity and resource management. It's about water management and, of course, also in multiple social sustainability aspects. Also, like study environments, safety, and cultural and identity. So
I thought only about like energy and the climate, not on people as well. But now you're mentioning like there is the social aspect as well, which is great.
Yes, definitely super important, super important aspect of urban development.
So you make analysis about what's happening. What do we have now, or what is there now? Right?
Yes, exactly. So you start out with the analysis, like what do we have now? And then you sort of find the gaps, like, okay, what do we need? But then you also start seeing, okay, so if you start making already then targets or goals, sustainability targets or goals, so okay, what does a sustainable and livable city mean here? And I say we because me and my colleagues, it's not part of the Citylab, but we usually use a methodology that we call sustainability scanning, which is where which is when you look at the different sustainability aspects and you look at the impact, and that is to help you prioritize. So you look at both the impact that you can have on these aspects. We're talking about positive and negative impact, but the impact that you can have on these aspects, but also what the impact these aspects have on the projects, let's say. So like when we're talking about climate adaptation, for example. And that is to help you prioritize between the different aspects that you're looking at, because then you start seeing synergies and conflicts. So then in order to help get forward in the project, you need to prioritize. I'm sure maybe some of our followers at least know the complexity and how easy it is to sometimes get stuck and not be able to move forward, because there's so much to think about and so much to so you don't know really where to start or where to turn to. Hence it is a wicked problem, right? So
and Thérèse, when you say like impact, do you measure how do you measure the impact? And as you mentioned, there are so many different aspects like energy, social. How do you put them on one line and then choose between them?
No, so it's we look at if, for example, also if the impact drivers are present in the project, for example. So if you're talking about energy, impact drivers would of course be if there's housing that needs energy, or if there's energy production or such, and then relevance of the project and then if it's relevant for the project. So if there are impact drivers in the project, but the impacts are not it's not really able to quantify them, because then you would have to have like for exact numbers. It's more qualitative assessment of the impact, because you also need to understand. Then of course you need to understand how different aspects are linked together, and when we're talking social sustainability aspects, for example, that's there's a lot of linkage between different aspects, but it's hard. It's not, you can seldom quantify the aspects or the impact that something will have. So it's more to I guess it's more a probability assessment of the impact.
So you prioritize. And then what happened the next step?
Then after you know how to, or after you sort of gotten down to, okay, so we're gonna have to choose this over that in this case. Then you can start creating. Then you start looking at, okay, but then how do we make sure that the negative effects that we're sort of creating because of this choice, how do we help mitigate that? But then also what targets do we want to make create in accordance with these priorities that we've done? And then we also usually want to make it like more qualitative goals, like really looking at the effect of the goals. And also so in Citylab, in the Sustainable Urban Development Program, you want you need to have goals or targets, sustainability targets, but they don't have to, for the certification, they don't have to be quantified or like measurable even. But our aim is always to think of it as if you want to make it measurable. So what does this really mean in reality? So if we're saying, for example, that we wanted a city district that is made for sustainable lifestyles. And then, okay, so what is sustainable lifestyles? And then maybe one part of sustainable lifestyles would be more sustainable mobility. So easy access to public transport and pedestrian roads and bike paths and such. But then maybe the goal should be also like, okay, but then how many square meters of road area is actually allocated to the bus stop? Also, not only to the road in itself, because if you get a bus stop that is, and also how far is it to go also, to the bus stop? Because if you plan a bus stop like in the last bit of the planning, if that is not prioritized, then you just get like a little shed as the bus stop, right? And then it won't really feel it won't feel inviting. People will also not really enjoy standing in that tiny shed. So you need to also think of the effects that you want these goals and targets to have. So
who put the goals and these measures and details and so on?
And that's actually in Citylab, one part of the process is to make many of the stakeholders feel active in the process in itself. And this is part of lessons learned also from early sustainability projects. That is easy sometimes to, or not easy, I shouldn't say easy, but it's easier sometimes to make a a sustainable plan or program for a city development and have these great visions and great ideas. But then it's sort of handed over to someone else. Or because other stakeholders get involved. There's the maybe not all, if it's a municipality doing the initial planning, maybe not all real estate companies are involved yet in the beginning, and then it's even later on that actually the those who are doing the constructions get involved and also creating the roads and such. And then this sort of trickles down into not a fraction of what was envisioned in the end, because there's so many people involved, and they are sometimes used to doing things in a way that they've always done things, and there's really so it's involvement, and that's one of the keys in the Citylab process for the new developments, to make people not only involved in the decision making in these, but also make them feel ownership of the ideas. So also having them answer the questions, okay, but then what would you like to see, or how can you contribute? Also make them feel like their ideas are being also put into goals or targets, or into the program, into actions, because that also helps them realize these targets, but also contribute, of course, to other targets. So it's so that's a key sort of for the development process that Citylab describes.
So when you put the targets or the goals and you do it together with the different actors, what happened next?
You mean in the construction process then?
No, let's say like in this process, you mentioned like you do this analysis first, and then you start to like with the goals as well later on, right?
Yes.
And what happened when you set the goals and you say, okay, these are the goals or the targets that we want to achieve with this area? Is it done, or there's something else following in the process?
So in the Citylab process, only the Citylab process, then you need to create this. The sustainability program, sustainable urban development program. In that one, you need to have the current situation analysis, which is the first step. Then you need to throughout the project work also with filling the gaps, getting the different there's different investigations that needs to get done. You need to look at values, nature values. You need to, of course, also look at cultural values. You need to there's a lots of these different investigations for the different focus areas that needs to get done. So you know, when you have a picture of what this area is about, and then throughout the development, you're also creating these goals, and then what you describe in the program is the process in itself of doing this, and then of course the goals, and then they need to link to the focus areas, and they need to also link to the sustainability goals in the Citylab, also Citylab manual. So it needs to, and you need to also describe how you work with the synergies and conflicts of different aspects, and then you need to also describe like the organization that has partaken and how people have been active. So it's the description of the process in itself, and then describe, of course, your vision and the targets. And it's that document that is then handed in for certification. But then you get the end certification as the plan is democratically anchored or enacted, and that's the one for the new districts. So then there's this wish from the Sweden Green Building Council, is the non-profit organization that's behind the certification. There's a wish from their side that the project, of course, continues working with the program, and that you make it also into more concrete actions. So it actually has the sometimes quantified goals, and so at least qualitative goals that actually are somehow measurable, and so you can follow up on them, and you can follow up on the progress through the construction of the project. And then when the district is finalized, that's when you also then can get the certification for the built districts. So it's also good, if that is an aim, to look at the quantified criteria in that manual already to begin with, and sort of have those as an aim for the new district. But then that is a different certification, and then you need to actually do the measurements of like energy in the buildings, and going out and having people answer surveys about safety in the area and such.
But who's responsible? Let's say when the document is done, who's responsible to follow up? And because I guess different actors should work with different goals, right? Like people focusing on energy, or another actor focusing, I don't know, on the social aspect. Is there any one following up how to implement what you wrote in the document? Is the city responsible to make the document coming a reality?
No, the city is not responsible for making the document becoming reality. It's that's why they have the two different certifications. It was I should clarify this, that before the spring, there was the not the updated version of the Citylab, and in that one there was also like the action plan could get a certificate, and where it also then said who was responsible for what, etc. And you could get for also smaller districts and such. There were different versions of certifications. But what they've noticed now is that those were not really used much. So instead they changed the process to how it is built now, or how it's structured now, with the idea then that when you have the two different certification systems, that you will look also for the built district to actually fulfill the goals set in the beginning. And then of course the first certification system makes it very important to get this holistic perspective, so no important aspects are
left behind,
exactly, or forgotten. And also that you start very early in the process with looking at sustainability aspects. So you get both the very early bit and then the final result, sort of. But that little gray zone in between the actual construction in the city and when it's being built, that one falls under the radar. And there's no demand that the sustainable urban development plan in itself actually becomes into reality. It's the document, that has a certification. But then a certified city, built city, they need to re-verify every 5 years. So they you need to sort of maintain a level of sustainability and make sure that you keep evolving. And that's also the idea in the planning process, that you look at also a longer time horizon. So you look at also how the city will develop over time, especially also there's in the energy section, for example, it aims towards climate neutrality. So it's also looking into, okay, but how does this district help Sweden reach its climate neutral, its goal of climate neutrality in 2045? So how does this district actually contribute to that goal? So then you need to look into also like smart systems that maybe are energy efficient today, but not necessarily can become more climate neutral over time. So then you need to maybe start looking at other systems also, and in a different way that maybe not everyone is planning today.
Interesting. How long does it take? I know it depends on the area also, like the size, but like from saying, okay, we start the document, start working with the Citylab methodology until you're done. Like, is it months, years?
No, so for the years. So for the document, it's that one's being developed through the process. So it takes the same amount of time as the project in itself to develop, which is usually a few years. And then, of course, the one for built cities or built districts, that one also takes a few years just to get the data actually collected, to make all the investigations and everything that needs to that you need to have. And that one is also designed a bit differently, because you can get a certification that you are sort of approved, but not yet certified, if you haven't reached all the quantified targets, but you're aiming to reach those during the development of the district. So it's not really meant to, or it's more meant to be something to aim for, something that you want to achieve in the development of the city, and something that should just that you should have also in your strategies for the development, like taking consideration for strategies of the city development or district development. So you can in the future hopefully achieve all of those quantified goals or targets, but it really is meant to be more to look at also as the aim,
something to aim
and something to develop together with, or along with.
But is this certification system only for Sweden, or can we, let's say, do it in Brazil or Dubai or so?
So it's developed for Swedish standards and methods, and the manual currently is only available in Swedish. But the ideas and concepts, of course, are implementable in any urban district, because it departs from the democratic process in Sweden. But if you and like the idea of how the process should go is departing from the Swedish perspective, of course, but the focus areas and also the quantified goals are departing from the new, like the latest science in urban sustainability when it was released a couple of years ago. And that's with using global data, and also measurements or data, also like requirements or goals set up in the EU, and the one for new productions and processes, the focus areas are the same as or are the same all over the world when you're talking about sustainability issues.
That's true.
So the ideas behind it, of course, can be implemented anywhere. And then the process in itself, though, is just more Swedish based.
And so you're certificated to run this long process.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm certified to run this long process. But usually you're a team. You're a team running together. There's only to make the project certified, you only need one person who is certified to run such a project. But usually, you work in bigger teams, maybe with either more certified people, or at least people who work with sustainability and urban planning, and you can create focus groups, or you can team up in other constellations and divide the work differently. It all depends on the project. But I am certified to run such a long project.
But it's very huge. Like now you're telling me the different steps, the amount of data, the amount of actors. Like it's really complex, right?
Well, I mean, urban development in itself is really complex, and it's not different from any urban development a process or plan in general. It
Yeah.
will always be this many stakeholders and be this complex. It's more about highlighting the sustainability in it, impact and the effects, and making active choices depending on or based on the knowledge that we have.
Yes.
Unfortunately, today there's a lot of people who have good intentions and good aims also for urban development projects, but maybe don't understand the consequences of the choices that are made.
True.
And it's to sort of to make these visible. That's the idea. And to actually get the result in the end that you were envisioning in the beginning. That's the core aim of the certification.
And Thérèse, are there like many cities asking for this certification or no?
They're becoming more and more.
Okay, that's good.
It's very, very nice to be part of this development process that we see now also in Sweden. Sustainable urban development has been a thing, of course, for a long time, but now it feels like it's reaching more municipalities, so the public sector. But they are working also on sometimes changing also their internal processes to accommodate for more like thinking of the sustainability earlier. Yeah, which is very good, right? So that is going on currently, which is very fun to see. But then also, of course, with the EU taxonomy and with sustainability also being something that is asked for by consumers in general, also the private sector is turning more towards certification systems and also ask for help to understand what does sustainability mean to them and how do they actually become sustainable.
They're integrating more like the sustainability in their processes and start to move a bit faster, like with sustainable development goals, maybe.
Exactly. They are both the public and the private sector are more looking into integrating sustainability in their processes. And there's also the EU has also proposed or has proposed a law that's probable that it will be also implemented in Sweden, where it's no longer allowed to claim something as sustainable unless it's certified by a third party. So you cannot say that something like this is green product or sustainable.
This is good.
Yeah, right. That's very good. But this also means that possibly also this could impact urban development and real estate. But you cannot say
it's
this
sustainable
is
until you get
or green unless you have a third party certification. So then Citylab becomes also interesting and to actually say, well, actually we are working with sustainability and it's not just calling it sustainable.
What are the challenges you face when you work with Citylab methodology or process?
Now the challenges are there's quite a few. So one thing that keeps recurring is this the maybe not understanding the effect of the consequences or the consequences of the decisions that are made. Like I said before, there are often good intentions, but maybe not the understanding of how to actually get there in real life. Like an example would be that it's we want a lively city district. We want there to be we want it to be bustling of life. And then you say, but let's make a huge shopping mall with a huge parking space. And then everyone's going to take the car to the parking space, going to the shopping mall, and take the car home from the mall. And no one will actually be walking on the streets around it. Like, it doesn't because you create a life where that's dependent on the car usage, and you're not really creating a life where you get this bustling of life streets. And if you don't understand, what the consequence might be from a decision, that's very common actually. And then not understanding each other in conflicts and synergies for people from different fields to think that they are, yes, we have the same vision, you might say, but it's easy to agree about something that's as so fluffy and not tangible,
and abstract,
something abstract, exactly. That's easy to agree on, but then you get into the conflicts of the different aspects, and then you have the disagreement. So also helping people understand each other from different disciplines, and to understand what they are agreeing on, sort of. It's also, let's say, it's also easy to agree, okay, let's have a green space. But then someone is thinking we need a green space for biodiversity, and someone is thinking for recreation, and the third person is thinking for open stormwater management system, and
different function or use of this space.
Exactly, but everyone will agree it's meant to be a green space, sort of. So you also need to, but all of those are also in contrast. Like you're gonna have to choose. So you need to also like get into the details, sort of, on what you're talking about, and help people understand that we're not always talking about the same things.
Did it happen that like you talk about one thing and then there start a big conflict between the actors and you're in the middle, like can we agree about something?
It has happened that there's been not happy moods, let's say, and so it's of course that's part of the process to try and create a good climate already to talk about conflicts and aspects, but yeah, of course it depends on the people who are in the project. But it has happened that people have not been too happy, or like maybe raised their voice, or
I can imagine.
And not maybe not understanding the other side.
Yeah. So this is also a challenge, that align and talk on the same thing and agree about one thing, instead of like or understanding that we are talking about the same thing and not everyone has their own perception about the space, like you mentioned, as a challenge. It's like the conflict.
Yes, definitely. The conflict can definitely be that you think you're talking about the same thing, but then
it's not
but then it's not the same when you sort of start prodding in it, or like start making it more concrete
to a ground level.
Exactly. So that can be, it can of course also be a conflict in what should be prioritized. It can be a conflict also that comes from the maybe not understanding the effects, like we talked about. There's also some people who are who can live with these like must-haves. This thing is super important because it's something that they've learned is important, or that they feel themselves is important. So it can actually come from different from different sources. But it can be because of different things that the conflicts arise, of course.
And when it happens that the group need to prioritize and choose one thing, who make this decision? Like, okay, we are moving with this thing instead of ABC. We are taking A.
It's the Citylab process advocates or encourage, of course, a collaborative approach. but and then that's why it's super good, or we find it super good to have done this sustainability scanning, as we call it, already very early in the project.
Yeah.
Because that's how you can then make the priorities and help, or also it contributes to people feeling like they have been on board on making this decision. We're going to have to choose this, because you can always go back and say, but this is what we agreed on. And then that's, and it can also be, and that's why we maybe should prioritize this over that.
Yeah.
But it can also be such a thing as, well, in if it's a bigger district, it can also be that, well, we cannot fit everything into this district, and then maybe one part of the district needs to have one focus, but another part of the district can have a different focus to sort of complement each other. And then you can also say, look at, but we have agreed that the priorities or functions of this district should be this and that. So therefore, this need to be prioritized over that. But in this district or this area, we have agreed differently.
Exactly.
So
like be more strategical and choosing and prioritizing.
Yes, exactly.
And what are your personal challenges leading or being part of leading this process?
Oh, my personal challenges.
Thérèce.
That's an excellent question. My personal challenges, I guess, it is this always trying. I'm always trying to be as forward thinking as possible, trying to foresee conflicts or disagreements before they arise.
Okay.
And I feel like there's always room for improvement. Because it's always easier or nicer in general for everyone, of course, when everyone feel like they have been part and then have been heard. And
I was wondering, how is it with the communication? Because there are so many people involved in this. How do you keep updated with all of them, getting data from them and put things together?
Oh yeah, communication in general, it maybe also looks or feels like a lot now because we're cramming this into a short talk, but we're also talking about it's quite a long term. So you need to have, of course, good structure of document handling if you want to, because you need to have everything in order for the certification in the end. But it's also that communication has that you've already thought of the communication structure to begin with. When you're thinking in the beginning, who will be involved, who will be the stakeholders, you also think of how will the communication flows go.
Yes.
So if you for example imagine that maybe there will be different people responsible for different parts. Then how do we synchronize our work, and who will engage with who, sort of. But also that you need to have a plan, of course, for when new stakeholders arrive. That's actually also one very important part in the Citylab process, that you have that you've thought of how to sort of onboard
the new
actors,
okay.
because so that they also feel involved. Because when we're talking about projects that are this long, also, of course, different people will get changed, even though maybe it's the same company,
but different people.
But then you also have another person to talk to. But then, of course, you will also have very few actors in the beginning and more coming, right? So you need to think about how to involve when new people get into the project.
I'm wondering, like, this is happening between the city and different actors who are going to be part of the development. What happened with the people, like citizens? Are they part of this process? Do they have a word in this or no?
they are part in the process in both in the normal democratic procedure that in Sweden, when you have a plan, it goes to samråd, which is
public hearing.
Yeah, exactly. When it goes to public hearing, but they are also involved in dialogue processes that you want to have. So if you make, for example, a social consequence analysis or a child consequence analysis, you will also have involvement from inhabitants in that way. So they are, and that's in the new in the new construction, and in the for built cities, then you have a lot of interviews, or then you have a lot of interviews and surveys for the actual inhabitants of that built city.
Cool.
So then, of course, they are also involved. Because it's a city is not just it's not the physical structure. It's a city is built of the people.
We say hardware and software.
The
exactly. People and the buildings.
So it's very important, because that's how you get livable cities, but that's also how you get sustainable cities. And this we know that it's super important with involvement, and that we engage, of course, different focus groups.
And I want to ask you also about like the EU taxonomy. Is it part of this Citylab process or the city development, or no?
So the EU taxonomy is incorporated to some extent.
Or can you tell us about what is the EU taxonomy? Like just a brief, because I think you're much more expert than me in this field.
Yeah, let's definitely.
Yeah, let's go back to.
Let's go back to what is the EU taxonomy. Let's wait.
So like super short, what is it about?
Yeah, so a short description then about the EU taxonomy to begin with. So it's actually there's different economic activities within that companies do business in, that has been deemed the economic activities that contribute to the greatest emissions of greatest greenhouse gas emissions in the EU, or greatest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. And then they've deep dived basically into these economic activities, and they've set up quantified criteria for 6 different environmental objectives. So these environmental objectives are climate mitigation, climate adaptation, water, circular economy, pollution prevention, and biodiversity.
Okay.
And so for all these environmental objectives, there's quantified criteria, and simplified. There's different categories of criteria. There's the substantial contributors, and then there's the do no significant harm criteria.
Okay.
And in order to be what is called aligned with the EU taxonomy, one needs to there's these set rules that say that, okay, so for these economic activity, you need to then fulfill the substantial contribution criteria of at least one of the environmental objectives, and then you need to fulfill the do no significant harm criteria of the other 5 environmental objectives. So again, we're talking of a little bit more holistic perspective, but maybe focused towards it is focused towards the environmental sustainability. But the fact that you need to, you maybe focus on one of the objectives, but then you can also not have super negative impacts on the other 5, right? But this then, if you actually fulfill these criteria, according to the rules and everything, then you can actually claim that what you're doing is sustainable.
Okay.
Because these economic activities, as I said, they are the ones that contribute the most to greenhouse gas emissions in the EU. But then there's, of course, ways to mitigate these negative effects. And if you actually fulfill the quantified criteria, then you are doing what is deemed what is deemed you can do today to actually help make these activities within these economic activities more sustainable, if that makes sense. So only if you actually fulfill these criteria can you say what I do is sustainable.
Yes.
So then now, of course, a lot of companies. So then you look at the finance in this. So you look at companies. For example, you look at the company's turnover. Like how much did actually go to how big part of the turnover has been in aligned projects, so to say. And you also look at the capex and opex and see are companies actually doing sustainable practices? AKA, are they aligned with EU taxonomy? Or are you doing practices and you say they're sustainable, but actually, according to the taxonomy, it's not what's classified as sustainable? So we have this. So it's actually a market incentive, more or less, from then investors and banks that want to say, okay, we are investing in sustainable practices. Then they ask those they invest in and projects that they invest in to prove this by actually being sustainable according to the EU taxonomy. And then, of course, we get the effect that when we have projects, so economic activities that are included in this taxonomy are also, of course, infrastructure projects. So you have road and rail projects, you have also pedestrian paths and bike paths, like that. You have construction of buildings, you have water management projects. There's a lot of infrastructural projects that are included, or a lot of projects that would occur in the development of a new city district that are included in the EU taxonomy. And Citylab, then, the new version that was released now in the spring, that one shows how some of the focus areas or some of the requirements in the according to the manual, how they help to become aligned in the EU taxonomy. So in some instances, you actually do fulfill some of the quantified criteria. When, for example, when you're looking into natural values in the area, and according to Citylab, you cannot be certified if you are if you're building on highly valuable ground, or and according to the EU taxonomy, that's also something that would be considered not aligned. So in some instances they are aligned, but then the EU taxonomy goes into the quantified targets, right? Whereas in the new manual Citylab for new urban development, it only reaches the it doesn't really reach the quantified targets. It doesn't go that into detail yet. So it's so they are, so it's more like Citylab is paving the road to become aligned. It's the start. And it's a great start.
Of course.
But then you will have to do more if you actually want to prove that
Yeah.
your project is aligned according to the EU taxonomy.
But the EU taxonomy, is it being updated or no? You have it and then you can work with it, or they update it every, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, I don't know.
It's being updated.
Okay.
Currently, there's a new draft out that is said to be released this summer with new economic activities and also more of the criteria. Because in the version that we have now, there's only the substantial contribution criteria for climate mitigation and climate adaptation, but then only do no significant harm criteria for the other 4 environmental objectives. Whereas, so now in the summer, we will also get do no substantial contribution criteria for the other environmental objectives.
So when you come back from your summer vacation, there are a lot of things to read.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. I have some summer lectures too. Now I know what I will be doing on the beach this summer.
Now I have a plan.
Now I have a plan, exactly.
And back to the urban planning and so on. I love to ask you, what should we stop doing when we plan cities as urban planners?
That is such a good question. What we should stop doing, because it's there's a lot of things that one can say we should be doing, but there's also a lot of things that we are already doing that are good, of course. I think the one thing, or the one thing I can think of that we maybe should stop doing is allowing the sustainability in general to be seen as something as a side project of the project. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes very sense.
It's very common that
true.
You will maybe make a sustainability program or plan or something, and it's seen as like an extra document, and it's sort of just it can end up just becoming a paper product.
Usually it is. End up like this, unfortunately.
And that's one of the things that Citylab, of course, the process of involving people is trying to mitigate that effect. But it's also so often that so much good work is put into these and really has great outcomes, and then since they are not incorporated in the other plans and in the strategies fully. So they sort of become forgotten, or they don't follow the project.
That's true.
That I think we should stop allowing that to happen.
This is so good. This is really so good, because usually what is happening is that you do the planning project and then let's do some document just to show that what we did is sustainable, and it's very light document, and that's it. Stop doing this fake sustainability.
Stop allowing it to happen.
And the other question is, what are the skills that we as urban planners should learn or develop, in your opinion?
So that's also a really good question. There's a multitude of skills I feel are really good, but of course one has to choose some, and not everyone can be skilled at everything. But I feel like one important skill is the ability to understand the different disciplines, and to also develop skills in the tools and the methodologies that we have for managing conflicts. So and then I mean not conflicts in between people, but the conflicts in different sustainability aspects. So but those two go hand in hand a little bit. So So what we talked about before, the understanding the different disciplines in the way that they that you can also foresee that, okay, now we're agreeing on something fluffy yet again, and that we let's get down to the more concrete what we're talking about, and helping then also other disciplines understand each other in this. You're talking about this, and why is this important for you? But then, of course, the tools and methods that are out there to highlight the conflicts and synergies, and to see them, and to mitigate the or to prioritize between them, and to mitigate the negative effects. So those, I guess, would be
good skills to learn.
Yeah.
And I now will be the devil advocate and say, like, why all this headache and long process and so much money on this kind of process? Can't we just like plan cities as how we did, and that's it? Why all of this? Why are you making it more complicated, and we need more documents and more people?
I guess you would be one of those who could also answer this question really well.
I'm being the devil advocate now.
Yeah, right. It's but that's true. It's an important question. I mean, we know now. We've known for long, but now we also have more and more data on the effects that the physical environment have. And if you're talking also about the child perspective in cities, we know how it also affects us in our upbringing, or in our development. And there was also this so let's say, so in general, it's to create healthy cities, healthy for the inhabitants, healthy for the city itself, if you see the municipality and the community, healthy for the nation. It's because we can have great positive spin-off effects, but we can also have massive negative spin-off effects, depending on or because of the consequences that you get from certain decisions that are made in urban planning. And we also now know that or there's also science that shows, because we are currently one of the reasons why this is important to me, the sustainable urban planning, and to understand it, is because we are currently facing a crisis, right? A climate crisis, and that's going to affect a lot of people.
True.
And understanding then also that this is something that you cannot, as an inhabitant or as a person, maybe take in or consider or act upon in your daily life, if you are under stress from the environment that you're in. Of course, you can be under stress from other reasons as well, but in general, if you're under pressure or under stress, there was also this great lecture that I saw some time ago that was called why that was called why vulnerable cities can't be sustainable.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Then vulnerable, referring to, of course, social sustainability aspects, and the sustainable referring more to the ecological sustainability aspects, and then like climate change. So, and how these two are so interlinked, sort of. So we are, let's say that we are investing in our future. That's what we're doing. We're investing this time and this effort and this money in our future. And of course, when we're talking sustainability, we're also talking economic sustainability. And if you're looking at municipalities, you're talking about socio-economic sustainability. And then a lot of these decisions that we make can also have, adhering to ecological or social sustainability mostly, can have negative socioeconomic effects. So if you're thinking about also, you're saying we are investing maybe time and money now, but investing this money right actually makes money grow over time for municipalities. But
in the long term.
In the long term, exactly. So we're looking at longer time perspectives. So yeah, it's. I think you actually formulated the question right. Why are we investing in it? Well, because it's an investment. It's going to generate profit.
We will have a return. Maybe not tomorrow, but in the future, of course.
But in the future, in multiple ways.
Yeah. Interesting. No, I'm really happy and also proud to be in the same company that with you. Like, you're doing amazing work. So, and also like now I learned so much from you. So great job.
I'm glad that I've been able to contribute with a little bit of more knowledge to you and hopefully to some of the listeners.
You did. And Thérèse, are you ready to move to the next section of the episode, which is going to be more about you?
Yes.
Let's do it. So my first question is, what gives you energy and motivates you to do what you're doing?
That's a really good question, because I feel like it can be two different things.
Okay.
So the motivation comes from this sensation, the motivation when it comes to like urban sustainability and these and my chosen line of work and my interest in itself, and the motivation to help contribute to a better world, that comes from this feeling of that I would like to, when my time on Earth is up, I would like to leave it better than when I came. That I feel like this is sort of a responsibility that I carry. Not only I, but then of course not everyone maybe sympathize with this responsibility. But I feel like it's part of my responsibility to take care of my community, my district. And my district, but in then the long term, the global community,
of course,
and our planet Earth, our only home. So this is what motivates me. But of course, this can be tiring. It's not always it actually gives energy.
I understand.
So that's why I feel it's like twofold. So for me, energy I get a lot from socializing with people, and from dancing.
Dancing?
Yes.
That's amazing.
So that's how I regenerate my or batteries.
Charge my batteries.
Charge my batteries, exactly.
What kind of dance you do?
I do couples dancing. But so I've done some tango, some bachata, some kizomba.
Wow.
But I mostly do a dance called Brazilian zouk, which no one has ever heard of.
Wait, what is this?
It's a Brazilian couple dance.
Okay.
Developed in Rio de Janeiro. Only 30 years ago. So it's a development of a dance called lambada. Maybe you've heard this. There's a song where they sing lambada, and that was very popular in the 80s, the lambada beat. But then it's like a development of that dance.
Cool.
So,
but do we have many people in Sweden like dancing this specific type of dance or no?
No, we're not so many. That's the harsh truth. We are. I mean, there are a multitude, but it's almost the amount that you know everyone. So it's a few hundred in Stockholm, and then it's like that in the major cities basically. So
cool.
it's not as big as the bachata or the salsa communities.
I understand. But is it like a lot of movement, or it's very like soft, slow, or you need to do a lot of body movements?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is a lot of body movement, but it's not as fast as salsa for those who understand that. It can also be danced very slowly. So it's flexible with the the timing in the dance. You can play with the tempo in the dance, and make the dance slower than the tempo in the song, or faster than the tempo in the song if you want, of course. And then we have both the steps, which will occur in all dances, but then also upper body movements, it's called. So and if anyone has danced bachata sensual, then they will recognize it, because souk is actually the inspiration for bachata sensual.
How come that you start to dance this?
It was when I was living in Shanghai, of all places. I was living in Shanghai for a year, studying Chinese.
Wow.
And then there was a girl from the Netherlands at the same university as me, who was teaching that, and I got hooked. And then I think what made me especially interested in this dance is that we were dancing to like very general pop songs, and I had, at that time, I had never seen that before. So of course that's popular in a lot of dances. But we also danced to general pop songs unalterated. So it would literally be the exact same versions that I've had heard, like, on the radio. And even if you're just sitting on the couch or somewhere, and you have music on in the background, if sometimes when the song goes on, I just start bobbing my head, and I cannot sit still. And it would be these songs that people were dancing together to, and I was like, what, you can dance together with another person to these songs? It's not just me bobbing my head by myself, and like moving a bit, the shoulders, and that just made me super.
That's so fun.
Super. I just fell in love with it.
How was like you because you traveled to USA, and also like in China. It's like very big and brave moves, Like, did you study in the US or?
In the US I was also studying.
It's not like you moved to a European city or so. No, you like moved really, really far away from Sweden.
I did. I think at the time. So this was also still at the time when this was at the time when I was still flying, obviously. But and also at the time, I think I felt Europe was just too close or something. It was not exotic enough. So that's why I went to the US
something new.
first. Something different. New, something new and different. And it is different. It's very, very interesting cultures to get to know, and also to see and understand both the US and China. And now I'm actually glad that I sort of did that, because now it means I have so much of Europe instead to explore, which it's much handier when not flying.
I understand. Did you plan your summer trip or vacation or no?
I'm thinking of, so it's not certain yet that it's going to happen.
Not official.
Not official. No, it's going to be. We'll see when this podcast episode comes out. Maybe we'll see. But I have an idea of going down to Lisbon by train in July of all the months. Don't ask me why it should be one of the warmest months. But my dance teachers from Brazil that come to Europe from time to time used to come to Europe. And I would go to these like events in Europe, and also my dance friends are literally spread across Europe. So they've moved to Lisbon.
Okay.
So they moved from Brazil to Lisbon, and so we're having almost like a small family gathering, like not actually family, but you know, dance friends.
That's amazing.
So that's I'm very much looking forward to that. So we will see if I can make it happen. Yeah,
make it happen. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I think you need this energy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
The charge of batteries.
Exactly. So what do you want people to tell and say about you when they read your names? I'm talking now people in the future, like 100 years from now.
Yeah. It's that's question that actually strikes to heart, because it's not improbable that I might still be alive in 100 years. People are today living to more than 110. So maybe it's borderline to imagine some more decades on that, but it's not completely improbable. So then I think what I would want is maybe not that people read something in particular about my name, but more that I being there and then seeing also, let's face it, the year 2100, when all the reports, you know, have this doomsday clock, the deadline, to see what actually became of it, and hopefully feeling like I was part of contributing to avoiding that the negative scenarios that we are perceiving right now.
That's sweet. Imagine you will do that, like you will live this moment.
Yeah, imagine seeing
that.
Wow,
And like no deadlines anymore.
And no, well, probably we'll have other deadlines. It wouldn't surprise me, but then I mean, you can only do so much in the time where you are right now.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've heard people say, you know, why do people saying, what if you could go back in time, what would you change? Well, you know, you're changing the future right now.
Yeah. So do it.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And 2 questions. Name something you did and you're very proud of. One thing you did you regret, or maybe you don't want to do it again in your career.
This is also a very good question. So something that I'm very proud of is actually not connected to my career. It's way earlier. It was at KTH during my studies.
Okay.
Yeah. We were a group of people who enjoyed this student theater or musical theater genre of of theater. And we there were some people who said, "Oh, but we have so much great talent in the program that we're studying." So this was the engineering program.
Okay.
So a lot of engineers, they're known for being very
Introvert.
Yeah, maybe introverted, but also like, you're all about figures and numbers and
Yeah,
figures,
yeah, exactly.
and creativity is not something that you usually.
That's true.
That's there are a lot of engineers out there who
Yeah.
are also very creative,
Yeah.
and they wanted to gather people and create something together.
Mhm.
I was elected the first head of student union theater group, or a student theater group.
Nice.
And then it was some people said, oh yeah, we're interested in being in it, but not really organizing anything. So it became on me to sort of gather, finding people who were interested,
Nice.
and having these like events and workshops for people
Wow.
to get their interest and
yeah,
get
yeah.
together, and then forming this group of people. And then a year and a half later, we put up our first performance.
Amazing.
We created this whole organization, and it still lives.
Until now?
Yeah, it still lives
Wow.
until now. So we've already celebrated 10 years ago,
Whoa.
or like that it is when
Yeah.
it turned 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's still providing this space and opportunities for students to live out their creativity, explore their creativity, and explore like thinking outside of the box concepts. You will always, meet challenges and things unplanned happening, trying to do these big projects and with a lot of people, right? And so people, you really, they develop also project management skills, but also develop their creative skills, and it's it also brings a lot of joy, not only to those in the group, but also, of course, to hopefully to the audience. So that's something that has no relation whatsoever to my career, but something that still warms my heart, to think of it.
So started from the beginning. Now you're here, like after 10 years, it's keep going, and there are students doing, reforming.
Yeah, and it's, of course, it's for the program Energy and Environment. So I'm hoping that this creativity will also help in people being more creative and finding solutions.
I think so. I every person I talk to, they tell me like it's always good to bring inspiration from something else. Like, don't do only the thing you work with. Try to walk, try to paint, try to sit and watch how people move in the city, like do something else just to get more inspiration. And this is a good way to do that. Meeting people, dancing, performing, and talking. Good job, really.
Thank you. Well, I hope that everyone is, and also that it maybe charges people's batteries again.
I think so.
So that we have the energy to do those things that motivate us.
Yeah. And tell me about the thing you don't want to do it again.
Don't want to do again. There has definitely been a lot of mistakes. And I would say maybe and also in my career, but I'm not sure I can claim or say that it's something I wouldn't want to do again, because it's also part of the reason why I'm here now and I get to do what I do now. So and I think that's how you just go about life. Sometimes you make mistakes, but then you learn from those, or those maybe open new doors.
Mistakes are part of success.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you will not be here if you didn't do maybe these few mistakes, or then you learn and then you keep going until you achieve what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah.
I like your answer. Interesting. Cool. And Thérèse, if you choose to do something else than what you're doing now, like another profession, to choose another profession, what would you like to do or choose?
I think so it's not hard. It's hard to say for definite, but the first thing that comes to my mind with that question is I would love to be a dance teacher. And just because it's definitely something I love also. And it's so amazing to get to see people evolve and sometimes accomplish things they didn't think they would be able to accomplish. And I just actually, and then I get to dance, I get to socialize, and I love planning events. So I feel like that would be very fun. But then of course it would be harder to feel like I was contributing to that which also motivates me, right?
Understand you.
So it's a good question.
That's a tricky,
it's a tricky one. Yeah. But yeah.
Yes. How do you keep your work-life balance, like from hobbies, work, private life? How is this going? Do you have any advice for us as well?
Oh, let's say I've learned from some mistakes. No, it's tricky. I have to be honest. It's tricky. It's very tricky. So work life is easier because there is this culture of not working more than the 40 hours, and then it's more about really planning your time and being and also planning to have some spare time or like leverage time, sort of, because there will always be things popping up, sort of. But then in my private life, I feel like 24 hours a day is just not enough. Because I have so many things that I enjoy doing. Because I'm both active in non-profit organizations and in professional networks for sustainability issues, which is something that motivates me, right? And that I feel I want to dedicate time to. But then I also love dancing, and I love, of course, spending a lot of time with my friends and my family, and just being active. And then train travels also take some time to go dancing. So it's a lot to cram into.
I see that 24 hours is not enough at all.
to those. So there I've also learned, maybe by mistakes, from my mistakes, to use the same mentality there, to plan in unplanned time, because things will pop up, obviously.
Exactly.
So
how many hours do you sleep?
That's a good question. I sleep 7.5 hours usually.
Okay, that's good amount of hours.
Yeah, it's I found that that's a good amount for me. So that's what I try to keep.
Do you have a specific morning routine? Like, what time do you wake up? What do you do?
So I'm really not a morning person.
Not?
I am such a night person, and so the whole office hours, 8 to 5, is not my biological rhythm. I don't know, it's so funny. Even if you go to different, like when I was also in the US or in China, in a different time zone, it wouldn't change the fact that I don't know how this is, but I know I know I have friends and acquaintances who are the same. same, so I know I'm not the only one. But
So what time do you wake up?
so I wake up if I work from home like 5 minutes before the first meeting. Okay, that's a bit excessive. Maybe half an hour before I need to leave, or before the actual first meeting. But now after the pandemic, when people started working from home,
it's good for you, no?
Yes, exactly. Except I cannot socialize at home, so I go to the office to be more social. But it's but yeah, so it actually differs. If I usually I try to start the mornings at 9, and then at 9, and then I actually have a morning routine with a little bit of yoga in the morning, because it's really good also for dancing and such. But then sometimes you need to be at the office at 8 or 8:30, and then it's harder to get out of bed in time. So you will see me coming into the office with my breakfast sandwich in my hand, That's definitely a common view.
And you finish like 5 or 6, and then you start your hobbies and
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I will finish, depending on them when I start, I will finish around 5 or 6, and I will usually either I have dancing classes, or I go out dancing with friends, or I have dinners or events planned with friends, or I have meetings with different associations, or I just need to go home to fix things for the associations. So it varies a lot over the days and the weeks what is happening.
And now we are in the last part of this episode. 3 questions, and the first one is about you giving a message to yourself. So what do you say to Thérèse?
I think a good message would be both keep up the good work, but also remember to take time to recharge batteries, because it's a marathon we're running and not a sprint.
That's true.
So I think that's a message there.
Yes. And the second question is that you give 3 takeaway messages to our listeners.
To our listeners, I would like to to maybe remind you to when we're talking of urban planning and then Citylab, to think about, of course, I'm assuming now that most of the listeners here are interested in urban planning and Citylab, and maybe actually are professionals working in it, and that to think about synergies and conflicts, and to highlight those, and to remember that there are methods to also and systematic methods for prioritizing, and that we are talking about wicked problems. So it's wicked, it's difficult. So if you don't know where to start, just start with one first step, because sometimes it can be feel overwhelming almost. And then sometimes it's better to just start somewhere, instead of getting stuck in trying to figure out where to start, sort of. And then to think about qualities and KPIs, to really think about the more concrete.
KPI means
key performance indicators.
Awesome. And the last question in this episode is going to be asked by you. So what is your question to our listener?
My question to our listeners, I guess it relates to the takeaways Like, how do you work with highlighting synergies and conflicts in different aspects? How do you make different stakeholders feel involved? And then how do you handle these conflicts that you see in the synergies and conflicts, or how do you handle the conflicts that you see? Not between the people, but between the aspects.
Yeah. Amazing. So thank you so much again for giving your time, for inspiring us. I feel so much wiser after talking to you now. Like, I learned a lot of the new things. And keep up the good work you're doing, like really amazing work. I'm very proud working with you as well. So hopefully talk to you and see you in the coming episodes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.